Back from Soldier Field, 9 straight losses, 2 more games to go. Ben Johnson looked pretty good, but so did Caleb Williams. We're going to be talking about it all. Tune in. After Dark postgame show now. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark, post-game After Dark. 9 straight losses, El Boogie.
Sure is.
Not good enough. Not good enough. That's what Cole Kmet said. Done trying to find the positives in losses, and I don't blame him. 9 straight losses. Time to start trying to turn the corner, but the Bears just can't do it, especially when they're playing teams of the level of the Detroit Lions. So we're going to get into a lot of different discussion. Patrick Norton was at Soldier Field covering the Bears for us. So we'll check in with him later on. Going to listen to a little bit of audio from Caleb Williams at the post-game presser as well. So a lot to get into here. Get your questions in, get your super chats in. We'll certainly be interacting with the chat throughout the show and getting your thoughts as well. So appreciate everybody hanging out. But Lance, give me your instant reaction to this game because, you know, it was a beatdown pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was. It was 10-0 before you could blink. And when I'm going to start with the defense. When I look at the defense, I don't see any connectivity there. I see the Lions. I see the Lions putting moves on Bears defenders that worked when we were in high school or in youth football. Just poor angles, a spin move, and the spin move works. You fly right by, and these are things when you get into college and they say, listen, you've got one move, you got to cut and you got to upfield. You're not going to have time for all this stuff to do all this dancing around because these guys are much better than that. You know what I mean? They're too fast. They're too smart. They take good angles. I saw unprofessional angles, and it's not just one or two guys. It's a group of guys that allow for a play that should be a no gain or maybe a yard or 2 yard gain turn into 8 yards, turn into 10 yards, turn into 6 yards, turn into 3 yards. Just it's a little, I would call it bush league. It's bush league, man. There are things that I was just really disappointed with. Of course, I mean, shoot, we say this every week that we're disappointed. So I can't say that I'm surprised.
Yeah, and it's frustrating too because the angles, it's not just how bad the angles are, it's the situational moments in which they happen. You got 3rd and 17, and I'm at the stadium, which is why my face is so red because it was trying to hang out in the wind and the cold at Soldier Field is certainly a tall task for the fans in the stands, but we made it. But it was 3rd and 17 at one point, and I turned to him and I go, they're going to get this first down. You watch. And it's simple check.
Braggs, is your face red because you were so high in the stands, or?
Well, I haven't gotten high with Sunnyside quite yet, but we'll get there here in a little bit.
My God, there it is.
We'll get there here in a little bit. But yes, I mean that went, that cold air will take a beating on you. But we made it. It actually wasn't as bad, even though the temperature was pretty bad. But bear weather wasn't able to help us in any kind of way to try to get, because the whole narrative was like, well, the Lions have only played outdoors in 2 games all year. So this is their first cold weather game they've had to play. But the Lions showed that they play with a lot more toughness than the Bears were aspiring to for this season.
I don't listen. I'm just, it's interesting to me that people they're trying to find as many possible ways to will this Bears team to a win. And it's some of the stuff is like it's such a reach. It's such a reach, that to me it's laughable because there's no way that even with the indoor Detroit Lions that's literally in the city that's colder than Chicago or as cold as Chicago, even though they're indoor, that they won't be prepared to play the Bears. The team has shown that they're prepared to play every week, regardless of the weather, regardless of the conditions, regardless of what's happening, the distractions. They're prepared every week, and that's what was most important going into this game.
Well, and when you talk about that, it's like the first 3 games where the Bears played divisional opponents, they gave all those 3 teams everything they had, and took it right to the end of the game. And it was competitive at the very least. If it wasn't absolutely perfect, there were certainly a lot of mistakes made in those 3 losses, by the way, but they were at least competitive games. But now you play these teams the second time over, play Minnesota on the road, you play Detroit at home, and you start to get your face kicked in because these teams are going to make the adjustments and good coaches are going to come prepared off that first go around. And the Bears just do not have, whether it's the skill set, for the players or the coaching staff and the ability to understand what the answers to the test are.
Typically at the beginning of the year is when especially for offenses, defenses tend to click earlier, but that's when you're finding out who you are. For some teams, it's a continuation of who we were the following year. For us defensively, at the beginning of the year, it was a continuation of what we had shown the previous year. So there was cause for us to be excited. And then as the year goes on, offenses start to gel. They start to figure things out. They start to figure out who they are, their identity. Defenses either get sharper or you find holes in them, as the year goes on. We just our holes have turned into hula hoop circles. It's just it's glaring, and so we've got a ways to go, Braggs. We've got a ways to go, and it's unfortunate, man, because we're supposed to be in the middle of a build, and now we're trying to figure out who's supposed to be here. And when you turn the tape on and you watch today, there's not a lot of choices right now.
No, certainly not a lot of choices. And I definitely think that this team is going to need an attitude adjustment here this offseason, a character adjustment. I understand that there's been a lot of frustration for all these players. And that's kind of, I think, affected here on this 9-game losing streak. I think they're more talented than what we've seen here. But at the end of the day, they have to try to will past whatever frustrations they are and play harder. And it feels like there's a lot of letting go of the rope and looking forward to vacation plans here coming up in a couple games. And, if you're wearing a captain patch and you're talking about vacation during the week at Hallis Hall, that's unacceptable. And even if you're saying it in a joking manner, it's just, I need this team to have a serious attitude adjustment going into next year.
If I had a captain patch on as a Chicago Bear, I'd be embarrassed. And I would say that on TV. I'm embarrassed, because I have a captain patch on a absolutely dismal football team. Like it is a reach when you try to find positives for us each week right now. To say, okay, listen, we did a couple of these things during the game. That was pretty good. We got a couple of first downs. Yeah, well, you know what? In the fourth quarter, there was a clear 3-and-out we got on defense. That was a good one. It's not one of those type of situations. So I would be embarrassed right now.
Yep.
And so I don't know. There's I know we're unpacking a lot with this game. We lose Braxton Jones. He looks like what's going to be done for the year. Yes, there were some positives in Caleb Williams and some of his passing. I still saw some overthrows. some of the same stuff, and holding the ball too long, taking some sacks. But I saw some. You know what? We're gonna say positive, Brax. We're gonna say positive. You know what I saw? I saw one hell of a spin move by Caleb Williams. I saw one a couple weeks ago. I saw one today, and I think it benefited in getting to extending a drive and getting the first down. That was a heck of a play, and I thought he made some pretty neat throws as well. There we go.
Yeah, no, and we're gonna hear from Caleb Williams from the post-game presser here in a minute, and we can kind of get into some of the different numbers as he's now. I believe I retweeted it from Bill Zimmerman, but I get, Lance, I know you're not the big stats guy, but at the same time, just to kind of put it into perspective, and I was talking with some fans yesterday about this, but I think just to put this into perspective, when you talk about Caleb Williams, right now he has the 6th most passing yards in a single season for any Bears quarterback ever. And for me, what I was trying to say yesterday was I define this as a disappointing year for Caleb. And that being said, as a rookie, he's doing things that most quarterbacks have never done for this franchise. And again, we understand it's a low bar here in Chicago. They haven't had great quarterbacks throughout their history. But at the same time, I just think I think his floor, it's showing where his ceiling could potentially be. So, but like I said, we'll hear from him here in the press conference. We'll talk about some of his numbers. One thing I did want to talk to you about before we get into all the Caleb Williams dialogue was jumping off sides on 4th and 1. This is the 3rd or 4th time this has happened this year. And in the moment, I turn to my friend and I go, I don't think I have seen a more undisciplined team for the Bears in my entire life. I just don't get how you can continually fall for that from the start of the season, the middle of the season, and now we're all the way to the end of the damn season, and it happens again. I just have no idea how that can continue to happen.
Bryce, when you get to this level, man, and it's like, okay, you screwed up once, okay, you screwed up twice, and I go through what I call the gamut, okay, where you screw up, you hear it from the players on the field, then you hear it from your coach, you hear it from the DC, you hear it from the head coach. You got to go through it, and it's one of those deals, man. Like, I don't want to ever go through that again. And at that age, when the snap count, which is damning in itself, the snap count. How the hell is it that we find a way, there's somebody you go out there and your job, Doug Kramer, is to report. That's my fault, man. I didn't report. All right. Let's go around the league and over all the weeks from week 1 to now, and find out how many guys went out there and reported and how many guys forgot to report. There's going to be one, and it's here with the Bears.
Right.
So when you say I haven't seen a more undisciplined team, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it to me, I want to know how they're being coached and why they're being coached that way. I want to know why they're not being professional in their own play when they go on the field, because regardless of the coaching, none of the coaches tell you to jump off sides.
Right.
And Thomas Brown, I'm sure that when he sent that call out and your quarterback and Caleb Williams said, hey, it's going to be on this, it's going to be on Monday, it's going to be on Tuesday, it's going to be 1, 2, or 3. Everybody knew what the call was going to be on. So what's the problem? How come you can't be more professional?
Exactly. It's a lack of focus, and that is attributed to professionalism, attention to detail, pride, like take pride in your work throughout the week and be ready for those little details. You watch the way the Detroit Lions executed, and we can get into all that conversation because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you thought Ben Johnson looked as a play caller, obviously with a very good team and a very good offensive line. But I thought, obviously the things he was doing were impressive, dialing up some layups for Jared Goff. And we'll get into all that. We also have, as I said, some Caleb Williams audio to hit. So we'll get into that. And of course, Patrick Norton, as I said, from Soldier Field in just a little bit. But first, want to give a shout out to our guys over at Sunnyside. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you use the code HICHGO for 50% off. Our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your winter and keep you warm. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Stop in the store nearest you throughout Illinois for expert guidance from their staff, or select from quality lines like Cresco or Florical. Available now in disposable vapes. Good news, Island Vibes, Destination Relaxation, and Puff Puff Paradise. You got for a limited time until December 31st, Sunnyside Scratch and Stash is back again for the holiday season. But again, you only got a few more days, so take advantage of this while you can. Receive a scratch off card every time you shop now through December 31st, or while supplies last. Every card is a winner. You could win big, like 50% off or $100 off your next purchase. Hurry in to see what you win. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 or older or Illinois medical card holders. Also, you know who we got to shout out next, Lance, and that's our guys over at Miller Lite. A lot's changed over the years. One thing that hasn't, the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't changed is that it's less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Well, Miller Lite sparked this debate in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. But we were settling on a ton of Miller Lites at our CHGO Bears tailgate. We got one more to go here on Thursday. Make sure you come out and get as many Miller Lites as you want before you enjoy the game. Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. Miller Lite is the official beer of the Chicago Bears. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/CHGO football, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer. Make sure you go get yourself some Miller Lite. That's right. Keeping this train moving along here at CHGO Bears After Dark. Please hit that like button while you're hanging out with us for our second post-game show of the night after the Bears once again lose 9 straight losses here. Last time they lost was in a different country, so it's been even longer since the last time they've won in the United States of America. So we're hoping that maybe they can end that losing streak to end the year, but they only have 2 more shots at that. We did have a super chat that came in. Maybe we'll hit that up here. Steven Giuseppe Mandel saying, just saying, I said everything on the last show. When you come to Vegas, hit me up for 18 on the course, for the golf course, that is. 85, only one accountable after and the only leader, and we don't use him. Cole Kmet was able to get a touchdown at one point on the goal line, but there was a few other times where it felt like Cole Kmet flashed open and he's just not receiving the ball at times. So we're just continuing to try to find that.
There was a moment where he had 2 options. Caleb had 2 options for for go-ahead touchdowns, and didn't go to either of the 2. You know, he had somebody on each side, on the left side and the right side. And I know you know what play I'm talking about. We were somewhere, I think we were maybe around the 20, maybe the 19. And I mean, look, there's a bunch of issues, and not all of them certainly are Caleb, but this play in particular, when you watch the replay and you say, holy moly, they show the right side, then they show the left side. There was a guy there, and it didn't take a whole lot of time to diagnose, okay, boom, I have a guy here. Okay, or I have a guy here, I have a guy here. So it's not one of those deals where you needed to hold the ball long to see where your opening would be, or your receiver, your go-to touchdown would be.
Yeah, I think there's just times where Caleb has trouble seeing the field, and as Baldy said, just seeing the rush and not seeing the field, which has led to a lot of sacks on the season. I think today he was only sacked once, so maybe they, took a step in the right direction to clean some of that up here, at least for this week. But it's just 1 week, it's one thing, and then the next week it's another. Caleb Williams versus the NFC North, though, just if we're going to do, the silver lining technique, Jordan Anderson helping us provide these stats. And Caleb Williams versus the NFC North, which is one of the best divisions in football, 63.3 completion percentage, 306 total yards per game, 8 touchdowns to no interceptions, and a 98.98 passer rating. So, and again, as I said, I'm not going to try to sell you. Right. I'm not going to try to sell you or anybody watching the show that means he's played well. But I also think that is the silver lining, that if we're going to say that isn't good, then in which I can give that up. Like, it is definitely not good enough.
It's not, bro. That's not good, because all those numbers have not led to touchdowns. Like, they're not computing to touchdowns. So you can put up those numbers. So it's like, okay, I can put up these numbers. All right, we play against a team. So there's these figures that you have. Okay, we'll play against a team, and we will hold their running back to 18 yards rushing. But before the half, when we're playing prevent defense, because we're up 3 touchdowns, they want to hand the ball off. The running back gets a chunk. He gets 2 chunks, gets 20 yards. Okay, on those chunks. Now we get to the end of the game, and same situation where you should be throwing the ball, but you do a handoff, and you get a chunk of yards, and now all of a sudden he's got 99 yards, or he's got 103 yards rushing. Like, all these numbers are not the truth. So when I say, like, for me, the truth of the numbers are, yes, you're putting up the numbers, but it has to equate to touchdowns, and they're not equating to touchdowns. So the numbers to me are it's a liar to me. I want numbers that compute to touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's fair. As I said, in those 4 games against the NFC North, he's got 8 touchdowns and no interceptions. So an average of 2 touchdowns per game. But, there's just so much more room for growth. But again, I agree with you that it is definitely how he's played not good enough. And I would define this season as disappointing, not just with the team, but what my expectations were for Caleb. And I don't need to base that solely off stats. You just watch the games, and you watch some of the missed throws, and you just watch what you think his ability can be versus what's been shown on field. It has been disappointing. At the same time, I do believe the silver lining is that what we are now defining as not good enough is a much higher bar than we've ever really had at quarterback here in Chicago. So he is a rookie, and there's, I think, a lot more room for growth. And if that's the case, based off of a lot of stats, because I saw T3P say, they're empty calories. Or, I see a lot of people say a lot of stuff is about garbage time. A lot of these stats are accumulated in garbage time. I'm not going to fight either of those statements. But, Caleb can only control what he controls. I think the defense has given up 30 or more points in 4 of the last 5 games. It was 27-7 at one point in this game. Caleb can't play defense too. So he's on a different developmental curve than what the team is currently at. So I think it's fair to, grade him on a hard curve, because he's a number 1 pick, and he should be held to a higher standard, because if you don't hold him to that higher standard, then right. If you don't hold Caleb Williams to a higher standard, then you don't really believe that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I do think that he can be a great quarterback. So I am going to hold him to a higher standard. So, time will tell. We do have, Caleb Williams audio from the press conference at Soldier Field. So let's hear from what Caleb Williams had to say for himself, and then we'll react to some of the things that he had to say.
The Lions side of the ball, you look frustrated when you all elected to kick it. What was going through your mind during that? Were you hoping that you all would go for it then?
No, I was kind of frustrated that just being in that position. We were already down by a lot, and second down, we ran the ball, and we didn't get much or any. I think it was actually a 1 to 2 yard negative play. So I was just more frustrated with that. Just now I'm in a 3rd and I don't remember the exact down, but it was like a 3rd and 9 or something like that. And it's just especially when you get down in the red zone, it's just it's always tough in the red zone. It's one of the toughest spots to score and throw the ball. And so when you get in that position, it just makes it tougher. And I was more frustrated, with that in that situation.
Caleb, the touchdown to Keenan, can you walk us through kind of what you saw there?
Yeah. So right before the snap, I saw obviously that they had a 2-high show, and right before the snap, I yelled to Keenan because I was thinking that it was going to be cover 2, and Keenan ran a great route. He ran it kind of perfect, and we've practiced this route many times, and we were just on the same page right before the snap, and threw a good ball. Keenan ran away from a couple people and scored.
I know you obviously take the win over anything, but when you look at that throw to Rowe and 4th down, when you're breaking these things down, how do you kind of take those individual moments versus what you would prefer for the team? I mean, can you still see the growth and understand that you obviously want the team to be better?
Yeah, obviously. You obviously can see the growth. If we're talking about myself, I mean, there's even from last game, some of the routes and some of the things like that. Just believing in the guys, believing in the concepts that are being called, and then throughout this whole season, the growth that I would say I've had, and then the growth that we've had on offense, and being able to fight through all of what's been going down for us, of coaches being fired in the middle of the season, and different coaches being promoted in different ways, and then so I think the fight. I think we got to do better with execution. Obviously, the penalties are, they shoot you in the foot, and it's tough. The NFL is tough. Winning games is tough. I don't even know how many wins they have, but I think they only have 2 losses over there. And so, going versus a team like that, you can't have those moments. You can't, whether it was the fumble, the first fumble between Rome and I. Me putting it all the way right in the middle, so that's not near his hip, and things like that, so he can clamp down on it. And then the second one, obviously understanding that a bunch of guys around you protecting the football, the penalties, shooting ourselves in the foot. So obviously there's been growth, but today I will say that it wasn't us growing. In that sense, we did a lot of things good, but we also did a lot of things bad to put our defense in bad situations. To not help us in scoring points and things like that, and putting even ourselves in bad situations on 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs, and just helping out the other team.
Caleb, the last 4 games, you guys have been down 2 scores pretty quick.
Yeah.
By the end of the first quarter, how do you get a sense of? I mean, this, when you're down 14 or 21, the defense is going to play you a certain way, in a way that they might not if the game's more competitive. How do you get a sense for you in terms of what works and what doesn't when you're playing a defense that, is nursing a big lead?
Yeah. I think regardless of how the defense plays, regardless of, what the plays are called for us offensively, we got to go out there and execute. That's the simplest way to dumb it down, regardless of what they're doing on that other side of the other side of football, whatever the other coach is calling. Obviously there's plays that are better versus certain defenses and all of this, but we got to find dirty yardage for when plays are maybe not the best call versus the defense over there or their scheme. And then, when we have the opportunities to execute and, hit for big plays or, really efficient plays and things like that, we got to do that. So, whatever they call over there is whatever they call, and how they manage the game or how they play us when we go down, we got to find ways to execute early and often. And, we got to keep that consistent.
You said a couple of months ago that these snaps are valuable for you even if the team's losing by a lot. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, every snap is valuable. There's so many different situations that happen throughout games that you can learn from and that I've learned from this year. And so, like earlier, this game we went to empty and it was the fourth down that we ended up going for it. Threw it to Keenan on third down. He ended up getting, a good positive gain. Enough for us to go for it. That's one that, was pointed out to me in the game about, just playing efficient football and playing and understanding, the situation and understanding not trying to make a big play when defenses are trying to drop out and things like that. So, I think every snap for myself and for this team is valuable.
How much difficulty does it add when you lose two offensive linemen as early as you guys did this game? And likewise, how did you feel like the offensive line played, while dealing with a lot of guys kind of moving parts around there?
Yeah, I think obviously it's tough when you lose, two of your starters. That's been your starters for the whole season. And so, I've told Braxton love him and all of that. Tevin was still able to walk around, but dealing with his injury and things like that. So it's tough, but we got to find ways to it's a part of football. It's probably the worst part about football is the injuries and your big players going down and things like that. But it is a part of football, and we got to find ways as a team to have that next guy up and go in and execute and do the right thing. And, that even means, for me, when we get a lineman in, like we did, understanding that, this is first snap and we've been in the game and, the D-line is flowing, offensive line is flowing, and, this is first snap, so getting the ball out of my hands and things like that. So it's, like I spoke about before, so many different situations that happen in football and throughout the games, that I have to take into account, but also, everybody else.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. The Bears.
And there is Caleb Williams from Soldier Field. He talked about Lance to start that presser where he was asked about not going for it, where the Bears settled for a field goal when they were down 20 to make it a 17-point deficit. Seemed like the Bears wanted to go for it there. I believe it was 4th and 7. They did pick up a 4th and 7 later in the fourth quarter. When that happened, Lance, did you agree with the decision for Thomas Brown to kick the field goal there when you're down 20 to make it a 17-point game? Because
Yes, I do, because points are hard to come by for the Bears, and somehow, some way, the players on the field will find a way to screw it up. So take what you can while you can, because you never know when you're going to get any more. So know your personnel. When you know your personnel, your personnel says, okay, you're in a 4th and short situation. Somebody jumps off sides. This is what we have shown. This is who we are. So now we're in a situation where, man, do we go for this or do we take the points? It's not a hard discussion when you go around. If you have any logical, reasonable coaches that are on that headset with you, fellas, what are we thinking? Are you thinking, no, kick the ball, coach. Kick the ball, coach.
Yeah, for sure. And Patrick Norton is going to join us from Soldier Field here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to get into some of Caleb Williams' stats on the day before we get to Pat here. Caleb Williams finishes with 26 of 40 completion for attempts, 334 passing yards, 34 rushing yards, which led the team. A really bad day at the office running the ball for the Chicago Bears today. 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Yeah, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. 9 straight games for Caleb Williams, not throwing an interception, and yet the Bears have lost all 9 games. And as I said earlier, only 2 sacks. So maybe a little better than what we've seen from some of these other games as Caleb is racking up the sacks for the season. I know you've always been a tough critic and somebody that's going to judge as Professor Briggs does, judge on a hard scale. You're not an easy teacher to sit in the classroom on, but overall, your thoughts on Caleb's performance and specifically,
Listen.
I'll highlight a couple plays for you at least that I thought really stood out to me. Obviously, the shot to Keenan Allen down the sidelines was for a touchdown. That was the same throw on Monday that he completely overthrew. So I feel like you saw some growth there. And then the other play that I think was probably my favorite of the game was at one point it's 4th and 1. And I think to myself that Caleb, he had just ran for 15 yards. He made a nice little juke and a little spin, and he was just short of the first down. They go for it on 4th down, and I'm thinking he's just going to try to run it again. And he throws a fade ball, deep down the right sideline to Rome Odunze, trusting his wide receiver. Rome comes down with the catch. I thought that was a big boy moment for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, listen, Keenan Allen had a big day. He had a big day today, well over 100 yards receiving. And obviously a lot of that had to do with Caleb and his protection and him being able to get the ball to him. Yes, I am a critic, Braggs. I like to be a fair critic. So I'm going to say things that a lot of people may not want to hear when it comes to Caleb. But regardless of whether you want to hear it or you don't want to hear it, it needs to be said. With that being said, there is something that I really, really do like. I really, really do like, and I'm really taking to Caleb in this sense is when he threw that touchdown to Keenan, I could feel the energy. I could feel the positive energy that was coming from him, regardless of what was going on. I don't care what our record is. I don't care what's happening in this game. I am so damn glad we got in that doggone end zone. And when the camera was on, that's all that mattered. And when that's all that matters, you got a football player, and you got somebody that you can get behind. And so what I saw there is I saw a quarterback that is going to have a whole lot of energy. He's going to give a whole lot of energy to this season, to this city when we're headed in that right direction. And he's the guy that's going to right that ship, is going to be on the captain of that boat. Then that's what I'm looking for. I know what to expect when things are going good, because when things are going bad, he can see the silver lining through the fog. He can creep through the fog. And I get that. I like competitors.
Yep.
I really enjoyed that. Okay. He did make some clutch throws. I saw some movement to extended drives with his feet, and even on the edge of the sideline, through throwing the ball away at the very last second, and so look, there's certainly been improvement. But that fight, that will, when we haven't won a game in who knows how long, months. I love that. I love that fight, because that fight is what we're going to need, and all your teammates are going to look toward, in the future.
Yeah, and when the defense, was keeping this team in ball games, Caleb would show up in the fourth quarters, but now the last few games, the Bears haven't even had a chance in the fourth quarter anymore, so you don't really get to see, the clutch ability. More to this kind of insane stretch that Caleb Williams is on without throwing an interception. And I understand the qualifiers of why this streak has kind of reached where it's at. One, he's taken a lot of sacks.
What's that?
Two, there's been a lot of inaccurate balls deep downfield that if they were more of a contested catch or giving your wide receiver an opportunity to catch it, could have been picked. And then three, obviously, there's been a good handful of picks that have been dropped, as most quarterbacks have, where a ball isn't going to. But at the same time, it is worth noting, per Bill Zimmerman and my guy Jeff Burkus from Windy City Gridiron, they both kind of have been hammering this home the last couple of weeks. And Caleb Williams is up to 326 straight pass attempts without an interception. And that's sixth all time in NFL history, not Bears history, but NFL history. Derek Carr is next at 332. Tom Brady is fourth and second on the list with 358 and a streak of 399 straight. Jared Goff was third at 383 straight, and number one all time, Aaron Rodgers, 402 straight passes without an interception. Caleb Williams, again, sixth all time right now with 326 straight pass attempts without an interception. It's kind of bizarre. I mean, that's a stat that Hall of Fame, all-time greats, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers are on this list. 9 straight games without an interception. But yet the Bears are 0-9. And it's just like baffling. I can remember when Jay Cutler first came to the Bears and he threw 30 interceptions. And yet this guy's come here. Yeah, I know you do. And I know you remember Aaron Rodgers and his 400 straight passes without an interception. Now we have a quarterback that's not throwing interceptions, but like it's bizarro world. It's just, I don't think you can make much sense of it. But we'll try to as we finish this season. And so it'll be interesting to see how this progresses. But I do think there's a lot of great things to take away from what Caleb Williams can do here going forward. And as you said, he's got that competitiveness, and there's certainly a clutch gene within there. So, but
I would just for him, I'd stay away from the as exciting as he looks when he is positive. The flip side to that is when he doesn't look positive. When he looks negative, his body language speaks very, very bad, poorly, and it shows. It's a memeable. It's very memeable. Is that a word? Right? Memeable. Memeable.
I always say. I see. Some people say meme. I say meme, and I know that's not right, but I say meme.
Meme, huh? Meme. Yeah. If you maim somebody, isn't that like completely ripping somebody apart? Like you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
that's fine. I wish somebody would have maimed me while I was sitting in the zone. It kind of feels like it, but So let's head over to Soldier Field and check in with our guy Patrick Norton. He was at Soldier Field today, doing some different things in the locker room and from the press box. I wanted to get his perspective on what he saw and heard. Before we get into what you heard from the locker room, Patrick, this fumble Rooski play by Ben Johnson where he gets the whole sidelines to yell fumble. Jared Goff and Gibbs are kind of messing with, acting like they trip. Ball's on the ground now, wide open in the end zone. Sam Laporta. I mean, do you feel like Ben Johnson was kind of letting the Bears know what he's all about in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, he was deep in his bag of tricks for sure today, and they've done that all year, but it felt especially significant today with everybody watching. McCaskey watching, Kevin Warren watching, everybody's watching, and he certainly put on a show, and successfully done too. I mean, I think they punted one time, and that came in the fourth quarter. So.
You've got to this situation for Ben Johnson, I'm sure he's the front runner, but he's made some comments before about things that need to be changed within certain organizations. Is this a situation where him or anybody else, coach-wise, comes in and says, listen, if I'm going to coach for the Bears, these are things that I demand to go along with it because of history. Like there's got to be more than just, hey, I just want to sign up and be a Bears coach.
Now, I think that's possible. However, it should also be said he's never been a head coach, and there are only 32 of these jobs out there. You can't come in to a place where you don't have a background. Ben Johnson doesn't have a background in Chicago, so he can't really be making these wild or put together this list of demands when he really hasn't proven himself to Chicago. Sure, if Dan Campbell were to move on for some reason and Detroit was, getting Ben Johnson instead and promoting him to head coach, then sure. But that's not what's happening. He's going to a different organization. So I never really bought into the comments that, well, he might not be interested in the Bears. If that's the case, that's just an odd thing to do because, again, 32 of these jobs, they don't roll around that often.
Right.
Sure, 7 open up every year. But
yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things, it is a rare opportunity.
Yeah,
at least that's what I've learned.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the demand is high for Ben Johnson right now. And what I do love about Ben Johnson is what I see from Detroit's offense. What I see from Detroit's offense, I really enjoy. It's got Chicago run game written all over it. It's got Chicago written all over.
Sure.
I love that about it.
How many times did they do an end around to a wide receiver today?
Not much.
No.
Right.
And when you look at too, it's just like how many of the explosive plays. I mean, it feels like they get 20 yards without breaking a sweat. And like it just feels like they string together explosive play after explosive play, but they feel like layups at the same time. So there's a lot of creative play design within that. And so it's Ben Johnson's certainly impressive. You were going to add on to that, Lance?
Well, yes, but remember this: they have one of the top offensive lines in the NFL, if not the top offensive line in the NFL.
That's exactly right.
Like there's some things that we have to realize with this team, and if Ben Johnson takes over for the Bears, it's not going to look like it does in Detroit because we don't have that offensive line.
Yes, it's going to be an improvement to the play calling, but he can't bring Detroit's offensive line. Yep,
absolutely
exactly right.
And it's going to take time to put together those pieces so that you get an offense that looks similar to the one that's putting up or producing as much as Detroit is right now.
Yep. And there's going to be an emphasis on the trenches here this offseason and on that offensive line, but then you need that offensive line to come together as a unit, which also will take time. And I know patience is kind of run out here in Chicago, and I know we're going to be looking for instant results as soon as next year starts. So that's just the nature of the beast here in the NFL and here in Chicago, where the Bears fans have kind of had enough. And to your point, Lance, when you talk about the ultimatum, so to speak, of what Ben Johnson put out there about organizations learning from their mistakes, I think something, I think some Bears fans need to keep in mind from that little tidbit that Albert Breer put out, about a month ago is Dan Quinn was once interviewed to be a head coach for the Chicago Bears. And he was flown out in coach, reported by David Kaplan. And guess who Dan Quinn's agent, guess who his agent also is the agent of? Ben Johnson. So, these guys talk. These people talk, and I think,
the Bears flew him out on coach. What did they fly him on? Southwest?
Yeah. Yeah.
I bet you they flew him on Frontier, and he had to pay for his own bags.
That's right. So something to keep in mind. Well, let's get into some of the things that you learned from the locker room, Patrick. I know you probably, I know you said you had I know you had a chance to talk with Keenan Allen. He certainly had a big day. He talked about putting things on tape. So I'm not sure if he's thinking about trying to get a new contract in Chicago or beyond, but what are some of the things you learned from Keenan from his day with Caleb Williams?
So here's what's interesting about Keenan Allen right now. he, is essentially a free agent in 2 weeks. It's the end of a 4-year contract that he's on right now. But beyond that, he is 2 touchdowns away from setting his career high. Is 7 on the season right now. His high was, I believe, 20, whatever the year was, but he had 8 one year. And he's had 7 a couple of times, a lot of 6s in there. 4 weeks ago, when he was on Mercedes Lewis's podcast, he had said it's Chicago or I'm back to LA, saying in the offseason, I would either like to stay in Chicago or I'm going back to the Chargers where I was. Today, that comment was, you got to prove it to all 32 teams. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. The last name on your back is really what matters. That's kind of a tone shift from 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, to where it now seems like, hey, this is, it's no longer Chicago or back to LA. And he's right. I mean, who knows what the interest would be from Chicago or from Los Angeles. You do have to play for more teams, but it was just interesting hearing him say after the game today that it's about what he's putting on tape and really using these next couple of weeks and already these past few weeks as just an audition for his next home.
Peter, I wish you would have been saying that from day one. Day one, because every snap that you get in the NFL really and truly is. You never know what's going to happen, and so and for him, it's because he's such a veteran. He's such a seasoned vet, and you've seen him year after year produce for the Chargers, regardless if he's injured or not. It was really disappointing watching him drop so many catchable footballs this year. Yep. I think we all know he's better than that.
He is. He had what last week, 4, and I thought that it was interesting because the gloves came back, but he had trouble with the ball early on in the game. And I think his first reception of it, you may have noticed he wasn't wearing his gloves. And so I thought, all right, maybe he's blaming the gloves. Maybe that's what he's gonna pin this on right now. But then when he caught the touchdown on the sideline, he's wearing the gloves again. So clearly wasn't that important to him.
Too cold.
But yeah, he's a guy who is getting a lot of money right now. And I just feel like in the NFL and in most sports anywhere, you don't stay if you're going to take a pay cut at some point, you're probably going somewhere else to do it. You're not taking a pay cut and staying with the same team. Keenan Allen's going to command a lot less money than the $20 million that he's making now, the 20 plus that he's making now. It's going to be a little bit different. So I don't think that that's going to be in Chicago at this rate. And so that's kind of why the comments were pretty interesting to me.
And no drops on the day for the Chicago Bears, at least I believe. And so that's something where they clean that up, because there certainly has been a fair share of drops throughout this year, and including with Keenan Allen. So, a cleaner day, although there was a moment in today's game where Keenan Allen was lined up offsides, because at one point they said offsides on the offense. And I was like, surely that's a mistake. And it wasn't. Only the Bears can find ways to
Only the Bears have a receiver that's going to know them, and the Kansas City Chiefs in Kadarius Toney, that'll have a receiver line up off sides and not check with the referee and make sure that you are on side.
Yep.
Crazy.
And so when you talk about putting things on tape, I think that also goes into it. But just one thing after another with this year's Chicago Bears. Let's keep going around the horn here with some of the different things you learned from the locker room with our guy, Patrick Norton. Cole Kmet, I saw the clip earlier. He doesn't look too thrilled. I think he's over it, and certainly a lot of shots across the bow from a lot of fans here in the city that have also kind of worn thin with patience. So what are some of the things you heard from the 85?
So I shot the video that we posted. And then when Thomas Brown was announced, or when it was announced that Thomas Brown was going to the podium, I stopped recording and I started to head out. It's a shame that I didn't get Cole for about 15 more seconds, because it was probably the most intriguing thing that he said, or not intriguing, but just damning thing that he said was when he was asked about there being so many Lions fans in the stands, and it really was. I know, Braggs, you were here for a little bit of the game, so
Yep.
it seemed 50-50 almost. And Cole said he was like, it wasn't surprising, or it's not surprising. Um, and then he went on to say, Detroit's having a great year, and we're not. Of course they're going to travel well. It's a relatively close game for them, and and based on the trend and direction of these two teams, it was an opportunity and almost a guarantee to watch them win the game. So just kind of speaks to the direction of things around here. I've never seen a Bears game where it has been so drastically, where Soldier Field has just been so drastically overtaken by opposing fans.
Yeah, I was doing everything I could to give them crap throughout, and when the Bears scored 2 touchdowns in the first half, I was trying my best to make fun of the Lions fans. I was like, "We haven't scored a touchdown in the first half all year, you losers."
Yep.
Now you gave up 2. How you gonna win a Super Bowl when you're letting us score? But that's about all I had on them. For the most part, they were getting the last laugh. And honestly, when you talk about the Lions fans there, the other thing that really stood out for me was all the mistake after mistake after mistake, stupid mistake after stupid mistake. Lions fans just looking at each other like, this is crazy. Like, you could see it. Like, they were like, they couldn't believe it. Like, and that's a sad state to be for Chicago Bears fans.
For the Bears, or let's look at the Lions first. This game started field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. For the Bears, I think it went punt, fumble, punt. That decided the game right there. You were in a 20-point hole right off the bat.
Right.
And that's insurmountable to this team, especially right now.
But that's what the Bears do.
Right.
But that's what the Bears have done. They've shown that this is who we are, and this is what we like to dig ourselves into a hole in the beginning of games, and then we like to stay there.
Well, and then look at how they ended the game. You have DJ Moore fumble on, a little jet sweep thing that they're doing, and then they have a false start with Jake Curran, and then there's a delay of game right after a penalty, I believe. Like, it's one thing after another, and the entire go ahead.
And Braggs, what about the business decisions that are made on the defense? Let's talk about these business decisions. I've been really wanting to get into this too. And near the goal line, I'm telling you, the little shoulder push that Jalen Johnson gave, to get him running back into the end zone, it was to help him into the end zone. Is Lance, really indicative of where we're at right now.
I love that you brought this up because it's something that I had written down too here. There was a play, I think it was a Jameson Williams catch, and he's on the sideline and he's wrapped up. And I don't remember who has him wrapped up, but he's still moving forward. He needs another good hit. And he's in a vulnerable spot too, where a good hit is, going to do some damage. Yes. As crappy as that sounds to say, but that's the goal of the game right there. And what he does is he essentially just kind of hugs him out of bounds. Just hugs him and guides him out. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Hit somebody from time to time. That was a frustrating moment. You could tell that people were frustrated in the stands for it too. Just kind of a collective groan from the Bears fans that were there. And that just kind of sums up what you've seen from this defense. And I don't even know if I'd say all year, because there have been points during this season where they've been the hard hitters. They've been playing well. Yeah. And it's not everybody on that unit either. But Jalen Johnson, you mentioned him at the goal line. I'm talking about him on the sideline. It's not uncommon with him this year. And it's a bit disappointing.
I agree. And there's so many things that kind of piled on. I see Kyler Murray come in and he takes a poor angle to Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs puts a spin move on him. He puts a spin move on him and he flies right by. Okay. These are just things, man, that doesn't, all the things together don't just happen to teams. They happen to us.
Yeah.
And all of them happen in one game, and it's one play after another. So you see Kyler on this play, you see Jalen on this play, and you see a missed sack by one of our defensive tackles or defensive ends, and it just piles up, and you get worn down by it.
So here's another reason why I'm kind of frustrated by it too. And that's because Thomas Brown, when he took over 3 weeks ago, it was, I'm going to preach aggression. We're going to be aggressive. That's what we do. And instead, the team has lost their aggressive step. They certainly haven't taken a step towards it. And that is seen not only in the way that they're hitting, but in the way that they're making decisions. And one of those decisions was a big one today, and that was the 4th and 7 when the Bears were down by 20 at their own, or excuse me, at Detroit's 12-yard line. And, you see Caleb come off, and he said the diplomatic thing after the game, saying, I wasn't frustrated by the decision. I was more frustrated that we were in that situation in the first place. Okay, that's true. I get that. He was also upset with the decision. I mean, let's call what it is. And that's fine. Good. You like that fire from your quarterback. But you can't say that you're going to be the aggressive head coach, and then when you're down by 20, more than halfway through the third quarter, not go for it on 4th and 7 from the 12-yard line. It especially looks worse when, and I have it written down, it was with about like 10 minutes left in the game. They're faced with a 4th and 7. They're on their own 31, and they go for it, and they're down by 17, and it's a 10-yard catch to Keenan. It's a good route, good ball. Everything works smoothly on that play. They pick it up, and it goes. And then the way that drive ends is with Caleb taking that sack with about 9 minutes left in the game. Yeah. It's 3rd and 11 then. It's now 4th and 20, and you're at the Detroit 37-yard line. Would have been a 55-yarder on 4th down for Cairo. It would bring it to a 2-possession game. And instead, Thomas Brown confirms after the game it's not within his range. So the sack had taken him out of Cairo's range. 55 yards. We're talking about a 55-yard field goal. I'm not a kicker. I can't complain about it too much. It was a little windy out there. I get it. But you also saw Jake Bates, the Detroit kicker, miss a 60-yarder. What was the 65-yarder?
Yeah.
He pushed it right. It's not that it didn't have the distance. He pushed it right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right.
And
I'll say this.
And then, yeah.
No, go ahead, Patrick. Go ahead, Patrick.
Well, the last thing on that field goal was instead of taking the field goal, they then intentionally take a delay of game.
Yeah.
While the game clock is running, 40 seconds off the clock, and then they punt. They're down 34-17 with 9 minutes left in the game. You drain 40 of those seconds off, and then you punt. That is not aggression. I don't know. And you can't lie and say that you're the aggressive head coach and then do that. That's just not, it's not winning football.
I think the other thing, not at all, I agree with you. But the other thing, you can't, listen, you couldn't drop me into a jungle and say, tame it.
Absolutely.
Right now, this is a jungle right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't think anybody can tame it right now. The best thing that we can do moving forward, is not only have that for the offensive side, somebody that these players can believe in, but you're also going to need somebody on that defensive side that these players can believe in. And again, I go back and forth on the analytical guy versus the old school guy, having a healthy balance of it all. But you really need to have a guy that both sides are going to buy into. They have to buy into. There's too much talk of players coming in and experiencing having bad experience with the organization of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, well said. And Minnesota played Seattle, and the Bears get ready to take on the Seahawks at Soldier Field here in just 4 days. The day after Christmas, Seattle's going to have to fly across the country, and Geno Smith throws an interception in their attempt to try to either tie the game or take the lead. So the Vikings win as the fight for the number 1 seed continues to stay interesting, and Seattle comes here after a tough loss, and I know they're fighting to try to stay in playoff contention as well. So that's going to be a big game for the Seahawks and an opportunity for the Bears to avoid a 10-game losing streak. Patrick, really good stuff from everything you learned from Soldier Field. Why don't you give the viewers a little clue in on what you're working on here for later tonight and what they can expect from ALLCHGO.com?
Going a little bit more in depth on the aggression, a little bit more in depth on Keenan Allen's comments as well. That'll be posted later tonight. And then we'll also have Carm's grades up there in a little bit too.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Sounds good. Well, appreciate you jumping on with us.
Thanks.
Here tonight. Great work as always at Soldier
Merry
Field.
Christmas, guys.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you as well. Patrick Norton, everyone. Shout out to him. And there it is. We got a few super chats, L Boogie, to get into before we head out of here. Just a few here from Michael Renault. $1.99 super chat. Poles is beyond bad. Fire him. And then Arctic is saying $2 super chat. Making a pass he missed isn't growth. It's his job. Well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. I think him learning how to properly layer balls in NFL windows is, something that all quarterbacks have to learn as they go. And so for him to miss that throw on Monday and then hit it in stride on Sunday, to me, is growth and something that you can say is
Arctic, I'm with you. Arctic, you're 100% right. That's his job. That is his job. Right, but it's just listen. If a guy's supposed to lay concrete, or he puts the foundation on a bridge. All right, he puts the foundation on the bridge because that's his job, right?
Right.
And that bridge faults or collapses. That's somebody's lives are on the job or on the line. You know what I mean? There are guys' jobs that are on the line. So yeah, when you get to this level, this is the highest level. There isn't a higher level than the NFL. So yes, and that's the reason why I'm going to criticize, because you're out there. All right. When I'm out there, I have made plenty of mistakes, Brax. Made plenty of mistakes. Okay. I have made plays. I have been close. I've been lucky. All those things, all the way in between. But whether I made it or I didn't, I was graded on whether I made the play or I didn't. So if I didn't make the play, it was a minus. Make the doggone play, because that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what he's supposed to do. So good job that he made it. But when he didn't, well, shit, make the damn play.
Of course. But like I said, if he just continued to make the same mistake over and over and over, when you talk about, a concrete guy, you're talking to a bricklayer here, right?
I know.
So you get on the wall and you get a new kid on the wall and he's laying brick, there's technique to it. And he's not always going to lay a perfect brick. And you try to teach him the proper technique, how to throw the mud down, how to put that brick, how to lay it to the line. Make sure you're using your fingertips and not palming that thing down. But if you keep teaching him, him that technique and he does not learn from the mistakes he makes to start, because they all make mistakes to start. You're not going to lay a brick perfect when you first get on a wall. But if you listen and you pay attention to the details and you don't continue to repeat those mistakes, then that's progress. So
how many mistakes you get before you're getting written up?
Well, it depends on if you're the boss's son or if you're not, right? So so Caleb's the boss's son, right? He's the $1 million
there you go. All
quarterback. So he gets a few more mistakes maybe than a 6th round pick. Now for you, Lance, when you talk about technique, you always talk about bad angles. You're looking at some of these guys taking bad angles on the run game. I'm sure you took a bad angle or two early in your career.
Absolutely.
and then you learned from that mistake and then you didn't repeat it. I think that's the part for me is where I can say it's encouraging. I'm not throwing them a ticker tape parade on Lakeshore Drive, but I think we can acknowledge that it's encouraging that from Monday to Sunday, he doesn't make the same mistake on the exact same throw.
Right. You love him. That's good. I love it.
All right. All right. Hater Lance Briggs here in the second hour of CHGO Bears After Dark. Just a big hater. That's who he is. And Professor Briggs will be coming out with his hater grades tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central. So make sure you tune in with that. We had a couple chats thrown up here. Aaron Wilson to go on with sorry, Steven. I just pulled it up. I got an itchy trigger finger. But Aaron Wilson jumps in here and says 226 passing yards per game, and Caleb Williams will enter the top 10 for all-time rookie passing yards. And I know how much Lance loves those kind of stats. That's why we had to make sure to say them. And Eric Bird, you be quiet, you hater. Eric Burden, the Bears currently have 3 picks in the top 42 of next year's draft. Of those 3 picks, how many picks will there be for offensive linemen, and how many picks for the defensive line? Lance, I'll let you answer this one and we'll call it a night.
Those first 2 need to be offensive line, no matter what. Those first 2 need to be offensive line. Hell, maybe even the third. I don't know, but we need to trade up. I think we need to trade up, or make some trades, or trade back, trade up. But those first 2 need to be offensive line, depending on who's the best possible interior guy there. But let's say we get Billings back. We're going to get Billings back. We have a Jervon. But I'm hoping that there's a possible trade that we can get a guy if there's a guy that's worth getting. But please. And this is also, so, let me backtrack this. We have to see what happens in free agency first. Because I can't just say we need this, and this, and then we go into free agency and we cover that. That changes the mold. So we have to see what happens in free agency to know because free agency dictates the draft. Free agency dictates the draft. So see what happens in the draft or in free agency. Then I can tell you right away what I think we should focus on.
Yeah, it's an impossible. People keep asking it, and we appreciate your question in there, but it's an impossible answer right now. Yeah. Free agency comes first, and then how the draft lays out comes second. Because I've seen some mock drafts that say, Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan, could potentially fall to 9. That sounds great, but he's got to fall there to be able to draft him. So you can say whoever you want, but ultimately you're at the mercy of how the draft falls to you. Right now, I think the Bears are picking 9th, unless something's changed today. Maybe they can jump or fall back depending on how these last 2 games go. So still a lot.
Carolina's looking better.
Yeah, well,
Carolina's looking better.
Did they win? Did they win today? Because last week they lost.
They won today. They beat the Cardinals.
Okay.
That's
okay. Wow.
Cardinals. The
I didn't see.
Looks pretty good. He's looking better. He's looking better.
See, progress. Just imagine. Yeah. And Caleb, just think how good he's going to look in year 2. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be live for every game.
Loving every moment here. Loving every moment
after every game. That's right. Monk Greer saying D tackles, D ends, and everything else. Hit that like button. We appreciate everybody showing up. We are live after every game. We are CHGO Sports and CHGO Bears, and this is the coverage we bring to you for every Bears game day. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Lance, wanted to give you the floor to kind of end the show. I know you had some things you wanted to share about your friend, and wanted to make sure that we gave you that proper spotlight.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's been a tough week. And when I got news that when I was a boy, and growing up, the first kid that I called my best friend, I got news that he had passed away, and was in a car accident, and he's no longer with us, and immediately, I got a call from his mother, and immediately just all the memories from childhood kind of ran through my head, and all the things that we did, because we were the youngest. We were the youngest in our families. We were the only boys, and we had our sisters played softball together. Our parents coached our sisters in softball, and we were the youngest, so we were always running into the parks and playing, but it was always, we were Batman and Robin. We were the two kids that were always rolling, man. And so he was always near and dear to me, man. I'm gonna miss him. Henry, little Sonny Olvera, we called him Sonny, and he will be missed, man. And rest in peace. And to his family, my condolences and all that love, man. I just, that's a really big part of my childhood. So, to everybody, listen, enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the holidays, man, and kiss and love those that, and make sure that those that and love know that.
Yeah, it was well said. And yeah, rest in peace to your good friend Henry, aka Little Sonny. And it's well said and puts things in proper perspective. And so we appreciate you doing that for us here to end this show and telling his story. And again, condolences to his family and of course to you, Lance. And so, well, that wraps things up here for tonight.
Yep.
We appreciate you, Lance, as always, and with your insights and your energy and even your haterade. We'll drink your haterade all night long, and we love you. And we know that tomorrow you're gonna hit us again with the tough grades for Professor Briggs. So
yes.
Make sure everybody tunes in for that. We'll be back at 1 p.m. Central for CHGO Bears with Mark Carman and Herb Howard. And then Lance will be checking in as well. So that wraps things up. Thank you to Stephen Nicholas behind the scenes running the 1s and 2s. And once again, thank you to Patrick Norton for all his hard work at Soldier Field and checking in with us. And of course, thank you to the fans for tuning in here tonight. That wraps things up for CHGO Bears After Dark. We'll see you tomorrow. 9 straight losses. It better not be 10. But as always, Bears fans, keep your heads up and always bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.